Hi, I'm Lynne. Welcome to this week's Fit Tip. Is the soy you're eating healthful or harmful? Well, I'm here with Dr. Chris Tadano. Thanks so much for being here with me.
My pleasure.
And he is a professor at the Center for Integrative Medicine at University of Maryland. So Chris, take it away.
Okay, so this is an area of increasing controversy. On one hand, you've got people that say that soy is a health panacea. On the other, that soy is a health disaster. And the truth is probably somewhere in between. But the one thing that's for certain is that soy is big business. In the United States, in 1996, soy food sales were $1 billion per year.
Wow.
In 2009, it's $4.5 billion. And this makes sense when you think about it. Soy's in pretty much everything when you read labels. So it is an important health question that we find out, is it healthful or harmful? And what we're going to do today is briefly go through some of the health benefits and some of the potential health risks of soy consumption, and then look at some specific examples, okay? So starting with the health benefits, there's pretty good evidence that soy can be helpful for reducing symptoms of menopause, hot flashes, and that kind of thing. And this is most likely due to the isoflavone content that's in soy. So what isoflavones are called phytoestrogens, which are estrogen-like compounds that occur in certain plant foods. So that's one. Another is that, probably related to this, is that in population studies it appears that people that consume more soy foods tend to have less risk of heart disease and breast cancer. So it is worth noting, however, that these studies were typically done in Asian countries. So the types of soy foods that they're eating there are quite different than a lot of the processed stuff we eat here. And I'll describe how that is in a moment. Okay, so talking a little bit about the risks. The first of which is that soy foods are one of the most common sources of food allergy and food intolerance. Okay, so a food allergy, if any of you have one, you'll know, is an acute type of situation where you might break out in rashes or hives or, in very rare situations, anaphylaxis. Okay, but an intolerance, especially to soy foods, is much more common. So these are sort of low-level digestive problems, maybe typical feelings of malaise. You know, you eat it, you just don't feel right, and other kinds of skin problems like acne and so on. So that's one. And related to that risk also is the anti-nutrient component of soy. And this is a term that viewers may not be familiar with. Basically, what an anti-nutrient is a substance that inhibits the absorption of vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients in our food, hence the term anti-nutrients. And the issue with soy is that soy contains quite a bit of them. Okay? It's got phytic acid, oxalates, enzyme inhibitors, and these can, again, cause problems because they inhibit the absorption of important vitamins and minerals in our diets. Now the good news is, and we'll look at some specific examples, is that fermented soy products don't have as much of this problem. So the fermentation process deactivates a lot of those anti-nutrients. And we'll look at some specific examples. And these are the types of foods that the Asian countries tend to eat. The miso, natto, tempeh. We've got some examples here.
Miso, organic tempeh.
Yep. So these are the types of things they're eating. They're fermented. Okay. Okay. Other risks, sort of related to that in some ways, is the processing. So you know, Chinese, Japanese cultures are not eating the processed soy because processed soy, in a part of the process that's processed with hexane. Okay, so hexane is a known neurotoxin. In addition to that, they use very strong acidic and alkaline washes that create amino acids that the body just doesn't know what to do with. So this can contribute to some of the digestive problems that certainly some viewers probably have with soy. Another one that you hear a lot about is, you know, men should eat soy. Sometimes we hear about that, and this is, you know, kind of rooted in the phytoestrogen content of soy. Now, there's not much evidence that it causes the hormonal imbalance that you read about quite a bit, but there is some evidence that it can decrease fertility, so lower sperm counts both in mice and in human beings. So it's probably not a great idea to be a primary protein source for men, or actually anyone for that matter. Because,
all right, girls, make sure you share that information with your boys.
Yes, you should. And also, just for anyone, for the women as well, soy is technically a complete protein, meaning it has the 8 essential amino acids necessary for health that we need to get through our diets our bodies can't produce. But it's very low in the amino acid methionine. So as such, you know, those that are relying on soy to get their main protein might think about getting other sources. Okay?
Correct.
So that's kind of the health benefits and health risks in a nutshell. We could go into much more detail, but we thought now would be a good idea to get practical and look at some specific examples of
the
good and
versus
bad. The good versus the bad. And it's kind of a spectrum here. So we'll start out with the good. Okay? So what Lynne has is tempeh, which you may not have seen before. It's a fermented soy product that's common in some Asian cultures. And you see it here, vegetarians will often use it. They'll marinate it and use it as a meat substitute. So that's good. So it's fermented by probiotic bacteria, which we hear a lot of good things about also for our health. And then we've got miso, which is much more familiar to people probably. Maybe not in this form. It's typically seen in soups. When you get your sushi, you get miso soup.
Miso soup, my favorite.
It's good stuff, yeah. And so again, and these both happen to be organic also, which is good. But these are fermented. A lot of those anti-nutrients we talked about are deactivated in it.
Right.
Okay, so moving on to edamame, another one that you've probably seen when you get your sushi. This is this is decent. This is pretty good. So it's not processed like some of the stuff to the right, but it's also not fermented. Okay, so it doesn't have the fermentation process to deactivate some of those anti-nutrients we talked about. So and here we've got people snacking this often.
It's dry roasted edamame.
And if you're going to get edamame, I really try to make sure that you get it organic and non-GMO.
Exactly.
Okay, so moving on to the soy protein. This would be firmly bad, in my opinion, for most people. So very highly processed, and tends to cause digestive problems with a lot of people. And again, it is very low in methionine. So I think a much better choice for protein, and protein, as we know, is good. Very important for body composition, both attaining and maintaining that. Better choices would be whey protein isolate, in my opinion, is probably the gold standard. But for people that don't want to have dairy in their diets, you could go with pea protein isolate. We don't hear as much about. Is a good source, as well as brown rice protein.
Good, great. And a lot of people think that by adding soy to their coffee at Starbucks or wherever, that they're doing their body good, but actually maybe not.
I don't think they are. So this is even more processed than the protein. Okay, and it also tends to contain a lot of sugar. So we know that a lot of sugar in the diets aren't very good. So if you're drinking soy in the name of health or to avoid dairy, I would actually suggest looking at something like almond milk, rice milk, or my favorite, coconut milk. Yeah, I know we both love that. So then we get on to the really refined stuff, the soy chips and soy bars. Where with these, again, very, very highly processed. They tend not to be organic, or thus they're probably genetically modified. So really a better choice for something like this would be a handful of dry roasted nuts, and one of these soy bars instead. Going for a whole food, low sugar snack bar, something like a Lara bar or a Kind bar.
Perfect.
And you're much better off. You're going to avoid some of the problems. So I guess in summary,
stay with the fermented.
Yeah, stay with the fermented. Moderate amounts of that would probably actually have some health benefits. And probably, moderate amounts of most of this stuff, because I really think, people are better off choosing other options.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So thank you very much again, Chris, for sharing this very important information about whether soy is helpful or harmful. And I like to close each one of my tips with a thought. Today's thought is this. Never be afraid to try something new. Remember, amateurs built the Ark. Professionals built the Titanic.
It's a good one.
Absolutely. So if you like the text version of this tip, or to see any of my past tips, please log on to brickbodies.com. And until we meet again, you go, girl!